Donald Trump sees Caitlin Clark's WNBA deal as unfair. The former president has voiced strong opinions on the WNBA salary structure, particularly in light of Caitlin Clark's groundbreaking contract.
Now understand this. Donald Trump's a true capitalist. Donald Trump is a true businessman. He understands the value of different businesses. All right?
Trump recently criticized the disparity between the deals offered to female athletes and their male counterparts, calling Clark's deal unfair in the context of the broader financial landscape of professional sports. As the debate around pay equity in women's sports intensifies, his remarks have sparked further discussion about whether the WNBA is doing enough to fairly compensate its stars.
You look at Caitlin Clark, she is driving basketball. She has higher ratings in the past 2 years. She makes $76,000 a year. Yeah. And LeBron James and these folks, Steph Curry, making over $50 million a year.
Caitlin Clark has been a game changer for the WNBA since her debut with the Indiana Fever in 2024. As the first overall pick, she's quickly established herself as a standout player, known for her exceptional shooting and court vision. With her incredible playmaking ability and growing fan base, Clark is already turning heads and making a major impact in the league. Her dynamic style of play has made her a force to be reckoned with, and it's clear the Fever have found their future star. Caitlin Clark's talent is undeniable, and her recent contract further cements her status as more than just a player. She's a rising star with immense influence on the league. Her electrifying presence on the court has quickly made her a household name, and fans are excited to see how she'll continue to elevate the WNBA. Clark's success with the Indiana Fever is a testament to her skill, charisma, and potential to shape the future of women's basketball. In a recent interview, Donald Trump voiced his concerns about the WNBA's salary structure, particularly regarding Caitlin Clark's contract. He described her earnings as unfair when compared to the much higher salaries of male NBA players, sparking a debate about the pay disparity in professional basketball between the genders. Trump's comments have fueled ongoing discussions about how women's sports are compensated in relation to their male counterparts. Trump acknowledged Caitlin Clark's impressive contract but emphasized it highlights a deeper issue within the WNBA. He argued that the wage gap between male and female athletes reflects an outdated system that hasn't kept pace with the increasing popularity and talent in women's sports. This comment adds to the ongoing discussion about fairness in compensation for women athletes.
I don't care how much money. They can offer Caitlin Clark $100 million, and I would tell her to stay away from this unrivaled 3-on-3. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a bad look for women's basketball. It's going to hurt their momentum. It's not even a real thing. It's something to pacify them, to make the women think, hey, you know what? I need to keep going along with this crap WNBA league that has poor leadership and doesn't know how to become profitable so we can get paid.
To understand Trump's point, it's important to look at the WNBA's salary structure. Historically, female athletes earn far less than NBA players. While the highest-paid WNBA stars make around $250,000 annually, NBA players can rake in tens of millions due to bigger TV deals, sponsorships, and overall league revenues. This contrast highlights the pay disparity between male and female athletes, a key issue Trump has raised in the ongoing debate over fairness in sports compensation. Despite the WNBA's significant growth in viewership and attendance, it still faces a financial gap when compared to the NBA. The difference in revenue, primarily driven by TV deals and sponsorships, raises critical questions about how leagues can ensure equitable pay for women athletes. As female players break records and attract larger audiences, this ongoing issue underscores the need for a more balanced approach to compensation and recognition in sports.
After a few away games and all of the sellouts, Caitlin asked the WNBA if they would pay spot bonuses to the away team players. She said, wow, we're making all this new revenue, and I would like the away team to benefit from that. Could they get a spot bonus? So that's the heart of Caitlin Clark. I mean, that's a classy, amazing person.
Caitlin Clark's influence extends well beyond her remarkable skills on the basketball court. As a key figure in the WNBA's rising visibility, She is setting an example for young female athletes, showcasing that they too can achieve greatness on the national stage. With her recent landmark contract, Clark has become a leading advocate for better pay, conditions, and recognition for women in sports. Her success challenges the financial disparities between male and female athletes, especially in basketball, and emphasizes the need for a shift in how women's sports are valued both commercially and culturally. Clark's popularity and the growing attention to women's sports could spark necessary reforms. As women's sports continue to attract more fans, brands, and sponsors, the demand for fairer pay structures becomes more urgent. Clark's rise is a key moment in this movement, positioning her not just as a player but as a catalyst for change. Her contract may serve as a pivotal moment that encourages the WNBA and other sports organizations to reevaluate their financial models and better support their athletes, ultimately setting the stage for future generations of women in sports to thrive. Reactions to Donald Trump's comments about the gender pay gap in sports have sparked a range of responses, especially regarding the pay disparity between male and female athletes. Some fans and sports commentators have expressed agreement with Trump's viewpoint, arguing that the issue of unequal pay is long overdue for resolution. They highlight the significant progress women's sports have made in recent years, particularly in terms of growing audiences and increasing media coverage. Supporters of the idea that female athletes deserve higher compensation point to the undeniable rise in the popularity of women's sports, particularly in leagues like the WNBA and events such as the Women's NCAA basketball tournament. With record-breaking television viewership, social media engagement, and the increasing marketability of athletes like Caitlin Clark, Aja Wilson, and others, these fans argue that the growing audience demands better financial recognition for female athletes. Many believe that the time has come for sports leagues, sponsors, and media outlets to increase their investment in women's sports, as their fan base continues to expand. These commentators stress that despite the progress in visibility, women's leagues are still often underfunded and underrepresented in the media compared to their male counterparts, even though their athletes are consistently delivering exceptional performances. Furthermore, advocates for equal pay point out that, just like in the men's leagues, the success of women's sports has the potential to generate significant revenue. They argue that leagues and organizations need to step up, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it makes good business sense to invest in the future of women's sports. Critics of the current pay gap assert that the financial resources available for women's sports often do not align with their growing audience. They stress that in order to truly achieve equality, the investment in women's sports must reflect both their cultural relevance and the increasing passion of their fan base, encouraging future generations of female athletes to continue pursuing their dreams on an equal playing field. In addition, structural barriers in the sports economy affect everything from sponsorship deals to media exposure. For example, major sports networks, while increasingly showing interest in women's sports, still devote a much larger portion of their airtime to men's leagues, leaving female athletes with limited platforms to grow their brands. The lack of consistent and widespread coverage means that women's sports often don't attract the same kind of corporate sponsorships or fan engagement, which in turn limits the revenue available to support higher salaries. Critics also point to the funding model of women's leagues themselves. While players like Caitlin Clark are undoubtedly talented and have contributed to an increase in visibility, the league as a whole still faces financial struggles due to lower investment from corporate sponsors and limited broadcasting deals. The pay disparity isn't just a matter of paying athletes what they deserve. It's also a reflection of the broader financial ecosystem that includes team revenue, broadcast rights, merchandise sales, and sponsorships. Some believe that the focus should be on creating a more level playing field for women in sports economics, rather than simply pushing for pay increases that don't address the underlying issues. For instance, increasing media coverage, improving marketing strategies for female athletes, and securing larger sponsorship deals are all seen as essential steps toward building a more sustainable economic model for women's sports. These changes would ideally lead to long-term financial growth, creating a more equitable foundation for increased player compensation in the future. In sum, while many agree with the spirit of Trump's comments about gender pay inequality, Critics assert that his perspective fails to account for the multifaceted nature of sports economics. They argue that real progress will come from addressing the structural challenges in the business of sports, rather than just raising salaries without a long-term, sustainable plan for growth.